Good evening. On behalf of all commissioners and the staff, I would like to welcome you all to our September 10th Grants Advisory Commission meeting. Please make sure if you would like an agenda, you can find one towards the end of that, our attorney as well as a speaker card if you have anything to add for public comment. We are also streamed on Comcast Channel 14 as well as Consolidated Communications Channel 7D3. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to an order. And before we have a roll call, I would like to welcome one of our new members that's here with us, our newest commissioner, Lauren Rosano. If you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome aboard.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Rosano. Great to meet you all. I own a digital marketing agency here in Roseville called Digitally Driven. I graduated Leadership Roseville in 2023, so excited to be involved and be here and attend my first meeting.
Welcome.
Okay. And we will now move to our roll call. Toby?
All right, bear with me here. Commissioner Acosta?
Present.
Commissioner Carroll?
Here.
Commissioner Kriz?
Present.
Commissioner Rosano?
Here.
Youth Commissioner Unidad?
Here.
Vice Chair Parker?
Here.
And Chair Reed?
Here.
And Commissioner Meeks Harris has an excused absence.
We'll now move to item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving to item 4 for public comment. This is an opportunity to speak on anything that's not on the agenda. If anyone has any, please go ahead and step up to the podium. Okay. Given that nobody has public comment, I will close public comment and move on to item 5, which is the minutes for August 13th, or 2024, of the Grants Advisory Commission. And one announcement to add to the minutes, our youth commissioner has been approved to vote as well. So just wanted to share that with everyone. I will entertain a motion if there's no comments or corrections.
I do have one correction. I think it's 6.2. There's a third paragraph down, last sentence. I believe it's the wrong 2. Got T-O-O. It should be T-O point, I think. If my grammar is correct.
One more time, 6.2.
6.2, third paragraph down. So it says at the very beginning, give the last sentence, the last line of the third paragraph, give the money, says T-O-O, should be T-O
Okay,
point.
got it.
Yeah. That's it.
Anybody else notice any comments or corrections? I will go ahead and entertain a motion then with that correction of the 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to item 6, the presentations, the Citizens Benefit Fund, ARPA, and REACH grant recipient presentations. The funding cycle will have the organizations present their programs and efforts, noticing the impact results of the Citizens Fund, ARPA, and REACH funding received. Each organization will have 3 minutes to present and talk about their program and efforts, including the impact and results. We have a little colorful thing near the microphone that you'll be able to see, so it'll start to light up. Once you're getting close to the end, I'm assuming it'll turn red. We have a cool button to press there just to help us. The vice chair will set that up, and it'll turn yellow when you have 1 minute left. And we'll ask you to just be considerate of everyone's time since we have quite a few presentations. I'll go ahead and begin to call the organizations up to the podium, and you can come and present. So we'll go ahead and start with our first organization for Child Advocates of Placer County, CASAs and Family Mentor.
Pass it on here.
Okay, I'll put that one to come back to. We're going to go ahead and move to the second one, Assistance League of Greater Placer.
I'm going to have to adjust this, I'm pretty short. Okay, Assistance League of Greater Placer, my name's Linda Martinez, and we received your grant, and with it served 428 children from the city of Roseville schools. And in addition to that, another 200 students were served with the shoe program that we have, which is, we have a clothing program and then we have a shoe program that we kind of work together, but the students that come for the clothing program that have the shopping events at Target can choose shoes, but if they can get them through their school and the other program, then they can buy more clothes. So that works out really well. We also, this year, provided clothing for 8 of the Roseville clothes closets for schools. So the clothes closets are where the school has clothes in case there's a child that has an accident or gets muddy or whatever, then they have clothes for them. So we were able to handle all of those kids and get clothes for them as a result of your grant, as well as additional money that we had available. So we actually spent $50,000 and $923 for clothing, and then almost another $5,000 for shoes. But you can see that your $25,000 made a real dent in that amount. So we were happy to have your help and benefit the young people from the schools of Placer County in Roseville. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Defending the Cause Regional Alliance for the 11 Action Project for $9,000.
My name's Tiffany, and I'm the director of the Alliance, and our 11 Action program serves the most vulnerable kids in our community by meeting tangible needs. We know that when trauma impacts kids, they really need a safe place and they need the opportunity to heal. And so the 11 Action program has 3 initiatives. We have an emergency supply closet where we house beds, furniture, bikes, all sorts of items so that kids and families that are going through difficult times can have their needs met immediately. We also have an amazing 11 Action database where agencies and nonprofits can post individual requests and get those needs met by the community. And we run 3 annual donation drives, a backpack drive, an emergency supply drive, and a Christmas drive. All the needs that are coming into us are vetted by the agencies and nonprofits serving on the front lines. And so last year we had organizations connect with the 11 Action program, and we gave 47 different organizations items. 50% of those are serving kids right here in the city of Roseville. And then 60% of the items collected from churches or people in the community came from residents of Roseville. So it's fun to see Roseville people serving Roseville kids and families. The vulnerable kids we serve include current and former foster youth. We serve refugees settling in this area, families going through crisis or homelessness, kids that are going through any type of trauma, women facing unplanned pregnancies, and then just families that are struggling. And so the Alliance is a pay-it-forward method. And so everything that you're doing and pouring into the Alliance is then turned around into items that can meet the needs of kids. Last year alone, we collected over 17,000 items that went to serve almost 4,000 kids right here in our region that are having beds, diapers, car seats, entire bedrooms furnished with beautiful beds and bedding and pillows and mattresses, all the way down to bikes and other essential supplies. And so thank you so much for investing in us, because we're turning it around and investing it right back into the organizations in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Gigi's Playhouse, Amina Grace Speech and Language Program, funded for $33,648.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Sino, and I am a member of the Board of Managers at Gigi's Playhouse Sacramento. I'm excited to share with you the impact of our speech and language program. So Gigi's Playhouse is what we call a Down Syndrome Achievement Center. We serve people with Down syndrome of all ages, and the key to our impact and our approach is that our services are completely free to our families to make them accessible to those who need them most. And so the money from the Citizens Benefit Fund supported a session of speech therapy for our participants, with the funding going towards providing hours from licensed speech therapy practitioners. And with that money, we provided 195 hours of speech therapy for our participants, which made a huge impact on our population. The speech therapy program helps individuals with things like improvement in sounds, use of vocab, etc. That really helps them thrive in both social and school settings, and ultimately just helps the overall wellness of the individuals who are served. Our program is established and evaluated by criteria that's set up by individuals who are experts in Down syndrome, and especially supporting the language of individuals with Down syndrome. And so our speech therapists were tracking week by week, session by session, the impact of the sessions, the progress of the participants, and saw success across all of these metrics that we're tracking in individual, articulation, speech outcomes that we're looking towards, that will ultimately help individuals thrive in the community. Each of these individuals and their families also received consultation and resources to take home about how they can continue to implement what they learned in the speech therapy sessions when they're home, when they're in the community, etc. So the impact of this program goes even beyond the sessions that were provided. So on behalf of Gigi's Playhouse Sacramento Board of Managers, I just wanted to thank you for the impact, the continued support of individuals with Down syndrome in Roseville.
Next, we have Life Skills Training and Educational Program, the after-school program for Placer County at-risk youth for $2,500.
Hello, my name is Axel Diaz. I'm the Fund Development Manager with Life Steps. We provide social services and programs to affordable and supportive housing in and around Roseville. The grant that we received did support our after-school and summer reading program at our Brookside Crossing affordable housing community in Lincoln, California. We served 43 youth, which is a great increase. Our program is completely free to all the residents, which is a 59% increase from what we saw throughout 2022 during the COVID pandemic. So we are seeing kids come back. During the summer, we do run an 8-week summer reading program to prevent the summer reading slide. Through the grant funding, we were able to purchase brand new books. We established a reading corner so that they could have a place to sit down and actually read and enjoy books. And this year's theme was Read, Renew, Repeat. So that means they learned about sustainability, renewability. Throughout our program, we had the kids create things from the Lorax, pretty much fostering an environment of reading, and we continue that. So now with the Reading Corner, we're doing 20 minutes of reading every single day with our kids, and through the funding as well, we're able to purchase backpacks filled with supplies for our kids that usually are at risk and vulnerable, providing them with a safe place. So on behalf of Life Steps, thank you so much.
Next, we have Hart's Landing Ranch Equine Assisted Therapy Program for $24,000.
Hi, my name is Jamie Perrell, and I'm with Hart's Landing, and I'm a therapist that works with them. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the $24,000. What we've used that for is Sometimes we match funds, but we've worked to really see lives change, such as we had one woman that we worked with this past year that was homeless, and we really saw the impact by she came in with very low self-esteem, and just the impact of homelessness had really gotten to her, not to mention all the trauma she had experienced throughout her life. And so we used that grant to help her through the homeless process that she was dealing with, and then also see her life change in ways that we still keep in contact with her. She updates us on, she got housing and was able to get her cat back with her and different things like that, which was amazing. But just the different clients that we work with, and everything from teens and individuals and veterans in our program that we work with. And so we're seeing lives change through working with horses. And so that's what we do in the equine assisted psychotherapy program that we work with. So we're really seeing a big impact in the changes that people are making in their lives, whether it's self-esteem, whether it's sexual abuse that they've endured, or, PTSD from being overseas in war type situations, things like that. So we really appreciate all that you guys are doing for us so that we can continue to make that impact. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center for combating depression, child abuse, and suicidal ideation for $75,000.
Good evening, Gary McDonald with Lighthouse Counseling and Family Resource Center. I'm also the Executive Director of Stand Up Placer as well now. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for the grants that you've given the Lighthouse over the years. It really has made a difference. It has literally been life-saving. We have served over the years, in past years, up to 4,500 people. But because of the pandemic, there's been a mental health crisis that's occurring in the United States. And so we're seeing people longer rather than shorter periods of time. It used to be 12 to 20 sessions, but now we're seeing people for a year, 2 years, because of the severity of the mental health trauma that they've gone through because of COVID and other issues. So we serve about 1,000 families a year now, which is about 2,500 people, and over half of them are under the age of 18. I didn't want to give you an overview, but I wanted to give you a particular story. And this story could be true for any of the children that we're seeing, and we're seeing over 1,000 children a year. Chris is a 15-year-old. Chris's mother reports he struggles with his peers at school. He's got a history of unhealthy friendships, and he has missed a lot of classes due to being anxious and spending time in the school wellness center. He has a history of self-harming, and when I say self-harming, he cuts himself. He's now stopped cutting himself over the past 3 months. Chris is wanting to manage his anxiety with his peers at school and create friendships. Towards the end of his treatment, Chris began to engage in self-care skills and distraction techniques to minimize anxiety symptoms and manage his stress levels. Overall, Chris has seen improvement in his symptoms through utilized coping skills and a growing support system. So he's doing much better. I could say that about any of the children. Last time I was up, I might have mentioned that we lost a child, that this 11-year-old had taken his own life, and there was another 9-year-old girl who had hung herself. And so, but this time I have nothing but good news to report that our children are doing better. And particularly, I wanted to tell you Chris's story. And because we are so efficient, and I've mentioned this in the past, for every dollar we spend, 96 cents goes to programs. And because of your grant, your support, because of you and staff, we are going to be expanding our operations in Roseville. We're going to be leasing additional space and with a conference room so we can begin having more conference or group sessions in Roseville, along with having more staff in Roseville as well. So thank you for that. Have a good evening.
Up next, we have Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplaincy for the mission support at $45,000.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll echo that which is going to be said a number of times tonight. Appreciation for you folks and the diligence that you do. My name is Mike Boone. I'm the Senior Chaplain with Placer County Law Enforcement Chaplaincy, and we are an agency that responds alongside law enforcement whenever there's a tragic death in the community, occasionally some other kind of crisis, and we'll respond both alongside the law enforcement for their benefit, but we also come alongside the citizens that they're dealing with so that the law enforcement can take care of their law business, and then we will take care of the families with their emotional needs through that first response time. In 2023, we responded to 313 calls over the year. So far, between January and August of this year, we've responded to 188 calls, that's countywide. 68 of those have been in Roseville for Roseville citizens, so that's 36% of what we do generally, somewhere between 30-35%, pretty average for us to respond to Roseville citizens within that, alongside Roseville PD and Placer County Sheriffs. My 40 volunteers so far just this year through August have put in 42,700 volunteer hours between community events and the emergency call-outs to which we've responded. We've assisted just in Roseville 272 of the Roseville citizens, as well as 219 Roseville police officers in the course of our responses. Again, I want to, that's a lot of statistics, a lot of facts. Let me just, one of the questions, of course, in the report that we give is how do you measure your successes? And we don't have a very objective way of doing that, but let me just give you one way we measure. This was from a set of parents who lost their 30-something-year-old son to fentanyl. I don't remember your names, but have wanted to send you a note since the awful, horrific day our son passed. Your presence brought so much comfort as we faced our first few hours of grief. We have thought of you so many times and how grateful that you were dispatched to our home. It has been 6 months since we lost our son. We are doing well. Attend grief coaching with a lot of support and friends and family. Thank you.
Next, let's welcome Placer Food Bank for pantry to-go equipment for $45,618.
Hello, I'm Deb Miguel. I'm the grants administrator for the food bank. We just want to say thank you to the commission. With the funds, we didn't buy the most glamorous product, but it's a valuable asset. We bought a lift gate for our distribution truck, and with that lift truck, it was very beneficial because it protects our most valuable asset, our staff and our volunteers. It's with mixed emotion that I tell you for 2024 we are on target to distribute over 11 million pounds of food. That's a lot of food to physically do yourself. So the lift gate protects our assets. It improves our efficiency because we're able to move. So it's not the most glamorous, but we love it and we're so appreciative of it. So our denios, we wouldn't be able to do 11 million pounds of food without our drive-through distributions. That's at denios. The line grows monthly. So our neighbors are in need, and we're here to feed the need. So our partners, many of them are back there because we're a community. So we appreciate everyone's support. And if you haven't checked social media today, we have a new name. Officially today, we are Feeding the Foothills. And so we remain in the background, Placer Food Bank. Everyone's writing, check your social media. So it just, everything, we are still who we are. Our mission has not changed. It's the name, and it's really inclusive, and it really speaks to an action item. We're here, and our mission is to feed, and we're feeding the Foothills. So more to come, and you'll get official notice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Placer Veterans Stand Down. For the Placer Veterans Stand Down event, that was funded at $20,000.
Hello all. My name is Kelly Murphy, and I'm here representing Diane Muirhead, our chairperson. She had an emergency. I'm on the board of directors, and I do the service providers, and many of my service providers are here today as well, which is awesome to see. We want to thank you for your generosity and your grant. We were able to help this year over 430 veterans. 105 of those were Roseville residents. 61% of those were homeless Roseville residents at risk for homelessness or suffered low-income status. We served over 2,690 meals, and that was with the support of our local service clubs, Randy Peters Catering and Thunder Valley. So they're great partners. Over 100 hot showers were taken over at the National Guard. They allow us to use their showers, and that's perfect because it's right next to the grounds, and we just walk them over, and they've got a beautiful shower arrangement. We did 47 haircuts courtesy of Hosley Academy. We housed 48 homeless veterans each night. We had 135 dental patients, and I have all the breakdowns, but it's more words than I can spit out. We had dentures for the first time, and over 41 people came and got dentures, whether they were brand new dentures, replacements, refills, one tray, both trays. It was amazing. One gentleman got him right on the spot, and he cried. He said he hadn't been able to chew for 10 years. So it was just amazing, those stories. 304 medical patients with all of the exams, tests, and medications. 126 vision patients with going home with glasses that day, ground right on the spot, or getting mailed to them if they needed a little bit more work done on the glasses. And then we had veterinarian care for over 27 companion animals with all their vaccinations and stuff, which is one of the hardest things for our homeless vets to do, is get their dogs taken care of. We didn't do cats this year. So it costs over $75,000 to put this event on after all of the free things. So it really goes a long way. This grant is just amazing for us. And I'm pleased to share that we were also selected as a Nonprofit of the Year by Joe Patterson, District 5, which was a great honor as well. And I think that's just because of the support of being able to do more and more. And the more we get, the more we can do, the more we can help. So that's just amazing. And I wanted to share one story. Bobby came in 2023. Bobby came in off the streets. He was kind of cranky. He was hot and tired, wanted to shower. And it's not my job normally, but I kind of took him under my wing, got him over and got him into the showers and got him taken care of. And then he followed me around for a few days, and he was going to go to his girlfriend in South Carolina. He ended up going home with the Gathering Inn, and I just saw him on Facebook with his own apartment that he just got from the Gathering Inn. So that's my story. And I don't know if I have any time left, but I'm a longtime Roseville resident, veteran's wife, and many of my family work for the city, and it just does me proud to see how much Roseville helps with our veterans, and I want to thank you all so much.
Next, we have Roseville Police Activities League for their Our Pal Summer Program that was funded at $25,000.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for your generous donations. My name is Jamie Hazen. I'm the Executive Director for the Roseville Police Activities League, also known as RPAL in the community. So the Roseville Police Activities League encourages involvement from underserved children ages 7 through 17, but we accept all Roseville children in that age group. Our mission is to enrich the lives of Roseville youth by building positive relationships between youth, police officers, and the community through a broad range of accessible and affordable programs. The 2023-24 grant assisted us in providing summer camp to Roseville youth and helped pay for insurance and field use for our Junior Giants program. Due to the funding cycle, our program is split in the middle of the cycle, so we report on the previous years. So some highlights from our 2023 summer program. Our summer camp served an average of 30 kids per day. We partnered with the City of Roseville to hire 6 staff to run our camp programs. We partnered with the Placer County Health and Human Services to have them come and teach cooking classes to our kids and show them what healthy meals and healthy snacks look like. Some of them didn't know that in advance. We received daily lunches from the Roseville City School District, so no kids were hungry. In addition to the lunches, we provided an afternoon snack each day and offered any of the extra lunch items for them to have an additional snack or to take home with them in the evening. We had drop-ins from the Roseville Police Department officers to hang out with the kids and get to know them, including our canine friends, and those were the most special days. The kids love the canines when they come to visit. Our daily curriculum included movement programs as well as art, STEM, and enrichment lessons, following the 7 habits of highly effective teens. We had lively discussions on topics of interest in each of the different age groups. At the end of the season, we had a big party with a big water slide and pizza and snow cones, and the kids had a great day. And our Junior Giants program had 203 kids enrolled from ages 5 to 12 years old. That equaled a total of 12 co-ed teams over 3 different age groups. So one challenge we did have in 2023 is we did not have an established leadership. I was hired as the executive director a few weeks after our summer program ended. So I've been on staff for a year now, and I can't wait to come back to you next year and tell you about the successful summer program that we just finished in July. All I'm going to tell you, a little hint, is that we pretty much almost doubled our kids and our program. So we are running strong and we're doing great, and I just want to say thank you very much for the generous donations to the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Silver Wishes for Mobility that was funded at $2,968.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Berger, president and co-founder of Silver Wishes. We are impacting the lives of seniors one wish at a time. The city of Roseville has over 31,000 seniors over the age of 65. And it's not a secret that aging is difficult for seniors, whether it be mobility issues, physical issues, financial strains, and a lot of these contribute to loneliness and depression. Silver Wishes is helping seniors overcome an obstacle they are facing one wish at a time that are struggling physically, financially, or emotionally. Thank you. Silver Wishes is grateful for the grant that we received from you for $2,900 that we use specifically for mobility wishes for citizens in Roseville. Each of our seniors are going through different struggles, and these 5 wishes allowed each of these seniors to help overcome an issue they're facing mobility-wise. 2 of them were for power lift recliners. You think, oh, power lift recliner, that's to help them rest. No, they can't get up on their own. Sometimes they wait a whole day till their caregiver comes back to get them out of their chair. We were able to give 2 power lift recliner chairs. In turn, this helps give them a sense of independence and some dignity again. One of our wishes was for a senior in Roseville who couldn't legally drive because she had bought used tires for her car, but they were illegal to drive because the tread was so low on those tires. So she was a safety hazard to herself and to others on the road. Your grant helped provide 4 new tires. Now she has independence to get out and about town again. Another wish recipient is now able to spend quality time with his wife again. It was too painful for him to walk on his own, but your grant helped provide him with a mobility scooter, and I think his wife was just as excited as he was to be able to go places again together. And finally, our last mobility wish was for a senior who has not left the town of Roseville for 10 years due to 3 major surgeries and health issues. Her wish was to put her medical issues and doctor appointments behind her, and she wanted to see friends and family again for the first time, 10 years in Whiskeytown Lake. So we sent her to Whiskeytown Lake for a chance for respite, hope, and time to spend with family and friends. So thank you, because your grant helped change their outlook on life by providing more independence, help them regain their dignity to do things on their own again, opportunities to be around more people, and overcome loneliness and help prevent depression. Thank you from Silver Wishes.
Up next, we have the United Cerebral Palsy Association for Recreation for All. That was funded at $4,900.
Good evening. First, thank you so much for the support for UCP. My name is Megan Laurie. I'm the Director of Development and Marketing for UCP of Sacramento in Northern California. We provide services and programs for those children and adults with intellectual disabilities, including those here in Placer County. So as you mentioned, the donation was in support for our recreation program. So in 2021, we recognized that there was not a lot of opportunities for those children, adults, and families to go to do kind of the fun things because businesses didn't know how to provide and adapt their services. So right now we're partnering with businesses to see how they can easily change those little tiny changes in their businesses so that they can easily help all these families and then make a comfortable place for these families to go. So here in Roseville, we actually partnered with the Cinemark Movie Complex at the Galleria. They have never held a sensory screening before, so we were the first organization to do that there. So we had 20 families come and join us. What that did is it allowed the children, if they weren't able to sit, they could run around the whole time. They dimmed the lights. They did change the audio. They just made a lot of adjustments for the families. In addition to that, we had people who were able to dress up. They went to see the Minions movie, I think it was, so we had a couple Minions dress up for the movie. They had special closed captioning devices. We actually had 2 participants who went on their first date together because their families felt comfortable. It was a safe environment for them to do so. So with that, because this was our first experience doing that, we have actually started to do additional movie nights for our families, not only here in Roseville, but in other parts of the Sacramento region. The other part of the recreation was to provide special swim lessons. Because of some of our clients, some of them can't communicate as well. Some of them need a little bit special adaptable equipment. Swimming lessons are really hard for our families to obtain. So we partnered with the Steve Wallens Swim School here in Roseville, and we provided scholarships for our families to go and do lessons, one-on-one lessons at the school. So one story that I have from a mom whose son absolutely loves the water, but she's terrified because she doesn't know how he's going to do, and he tends to sometimes runs off, and she wants to make sure he has the skill set if something were to ever happen. So she was wanted to say she's very thankful for the donation and the experience that they had. She's confident that he's learning the foundation of water safety, and that brings so much peace of mind to her. And because of that, she's actually enrolled him in additional swim lessons along with his younger brother. But because of the donation, she's been able to come up with for a breath of fresh air because of it. And this is her quote: "This mama is beyond words proud and happy, and my eyes are filled with tears as she wrote this note." So your donation's making a huge impact, not only here for the families here in Roseville, but the businesses as well who are learning to make some changes. So thank you for your donation.
Next, we have Wayfinder Family Services for the Kinship Support Services Program, funded at $10,000.
Hello, and thank you for having us. My name is Tanya Fontenot. I'm the Associate VP of programs for Wayfinder Family Services. We are formerly Lilliput Families, well known in Placer for many years with that name. I have with me Raquel Gonzalez, our kinship social worker who has been working with families for 15 years for our agency. We're here to thank you for your generous donation and grant, and especially appreciative of your increased support each year. Wayfinder has supported relatives who have stepped up to raise a child in their family for 15 years. We believe to our core that children should remain with families when at all possible. Placer County also kin first culture across the state, so we anticipate our numbers increasing. We believe that families and communities thrive when the children and their families are able to stay with family. Our program supports caregivers and children and often sibling sets in being able to remain with family rather than go into foster care. Being a relative caregiver, however, when they weren't expecting to parent, can be overwhelming and quite lonely. We're there to be by their side and tell them it's okay. We connect them to other relatives who also tell them it's okay. We provide coaching and support, financial support for emergency needs. Over the many years, our program has focused on creating a network for all of the kinship caregivers. Many of them created a text chain and connect with each other when they know that something's going on with one of the families and support each other outside of our support, which is really the goal. Many have connected and frequently rely on each other for support and are able to connect and continue to raise the child that's in their home. Over a third of all of our caregivers reside in Roseville. We have 79 families in Roseville alone, and we anticipate this number growing. In fact, we closed our small office in Auburn that we outgrew and opened up an office in Roseville to really meet the demand of the families that wanted us to be closer to where they are. We ensure that the grants we receive from you benefit the families in Roseville specifically. Last year, the $10,000 grant we received benefited 31 families, which was 92 children and caregivers. We assisted them with unexpected food and clothing needs. Over the last year, there was an increased need and request for support. We also assist with respite, childcare resources, workshops on guardianship, family activities, mentoring, and support groups, just to name a few. Raquel's going to close with a brief story of really that perfectly exemplifies the difference that these grant dollars makes for families.
Thank you. So a high percentage of our families are grandparents raising their grandchildren. Many are single grandparents on a fixed income. We have a family that has been a part of our agency for a long time. It's a two-parent household, and they are raising their 3 grandchildren that have been in their care for 8 years. Last fall, the grandfather had fallen ill and sadly passed away. The grandmother was dealing with a lot of stress, dealing with the bank, his job, insurance. Grandpa was the breadwinner in the family. The grandmother reached out to me to assist her in making copies of his death certificate and emailing documents that were requested by various agencies. I had her come into the office, and towards the end of our visit, I handed her a gift card so that she would be able to purchase groceries. She broke down in tears and was extremely thankful. With so much stress on her plate, having food on the table was something she did not need to worry about. This is one of many stories of the impact you are having on our families. We are thankful for your support.
If I have not called your organization and you haven't spoken, you're welcome to come to the podium now.
Hello, my name is Mary Tess Mayall. I'm the Executive Director at Blue Line Arts, and we received $25,000, a one-time strategic grant for a beautiful new mural in the heart of downtown Roseville, right behind the Roseville Theater Arts Academy. And your support really helped us create the largest mural to date in downtown Roseville, which is really exciting. With the $25,000, we were able to leverage that with some of our key partners, so the total project came out to $40,000. And even though we faced some challenges throughout the project, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank some of our key collaborative partners that we had in the community. I'd like to personally thank Roseville Electric. They came out with in-kind services, not once, not twice, but 3 times on site during the project, which was just invaluable. Gina McCall from the Roseville Economic Development Department served as our main point of contact, and she was very, very helpful. Another person to thank is Dave Peaches. He is the board president for the Downtown Roseville Partnership. He had amazing leadership throughout the whole project and was really just so instrumental in helping me throughout that and our whole team, really. Special thanks also to Megan Hoyt. She is the manager for the Roseville Theater Academy, and Frank Van Sant with the Roseville Masons, who were the property owners for the project and gave us permission to have the mural in the first place. And then especially to the hardworking lead artist, Graham Caraway, and his artists that he brought in. The project happened last fall, and it kind of culminated during one of the Concerts on the Square events. So everyone who parked at that parking structure were able to walk by Graham painting up on this crazy lift, and we had so much engagement over social media. People loved seeing the mural come to life. We had some great videos throughout the project too, and most of them averaged 7,000 likes and over 50 comments. Most of them were overwhelmingly positive in wanting to see more murals like this happen in downtown Roseville. So with that, I just hope that this mural really capitalizes on like the creativity and the sense of belonging that public art can bring to our community. It has drawn attention from business owners, property owners, residents, and visitors alike, and I think really helps draw tourism to this area. And lastly, this project, while it was difficult, it was definitely worthwhile. And Blue Line Arts is continuing to have conversations with local property owners if they are interested in murals. And it is definitely helped and assisted by not only the City of Roseville, but also the Downtown Roseville Partnership and their vision for the area. So lastly, I'd just like to, and again, thank our key partners and thank you to you for making this possible. And we look forward to more projects like this in the future. Thanks.
My name is Christy Varnum, and I am from Child Advocates, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for having me today. We're so grateful for the grant we have received from you guys. Because of the fundings we've received from you guys, we have been able to provide court-appointed special advocates to 135 Roseville foster youth, and they're some of the most vulnerable folks in our community. Through our family services, we have been able to provide mentors to 45 of our parents, and that's impacting over 100 children, and that's just our Roseville folks. One of the things we've been able to do with the funding that we've received from you is we have been able to embed a staff over at the VOA on 410 Riverside, which is the old Homestar. I think you guys are all familiar. Those are some of the most vulnerable folks in our community. Those are the parents that are literally coming in from sleeping in their vehicles with their children and or maybe even sleeping at the park with their children. And so because of the funding we've received from you, we've been able to not only embed a staff over there on Wednesdays to help them get back on their feet and support them in rebuilding their life, but also we've been able to provide mentors to some of the other community members over there. So that's been super, super successful, and we've had a lot of really successful parents. We have had a mom that was from Ukraine, and she was able to come in as a homeless resident there, and just a fabulous, fabulous family with just needed a place to go, and we've been able to walk by her side, and it's just been really uplifting. We've also been able to provide mentors to some of our parents over there that have had their children removed because of domestic violence or substance abuse or something, and it's been wonderful to see them regain their independence and their identity and rebuild. And it's just wonderful to see their children are entering Head Start and back to school, of course, and they're just blossoming, and that's been wonderful. one of the other things I'm thinking about is we had a mom that had, she was a victim of abuse throughout her childhood and then got into a domestic violence relationship where she was beaten in front of her children. And she had to flee the situation and ended up at the gathering end. And then she went over to VOA and got in there, and she is now enrolled in college, and her children are thriving, and she's got a great job, and it's just been beautiful. So thank you very much on behalf of myself and Child Advocates.
Okay, it looks like everyone's presented. Well, thank you, all of you, for transforming Roseville. I think our motto is "We are Roseville," and all of you have represented how we are a community and what you do for all of the community. Anybody else like to add anything?
Of course, yeah. Take the opportunity that, this meeting is always special. It's one that we started just a few years ago. It's not to elicit accolades as a commission, but really to recognize you as people that are really making Roseville that special place. So Roseville leadership set money aside back in the 90s to do just this, is to pour back into the community those that are making a difference. And on the commission several years back, we kind of did a needs assessment, and there were two things that were highlighted as part of that assessment. One of them, there was a lot of people that were doing some really good work in the community that didn't know this potential funding source to be able to help them amplify that. The second thing was, there was a lot of people in the community that had no idea what was going on out there and the organizations that were working for the betterment of Roseville, increasing the quality of life and making it the special place that it is. So that's kind of why we designed this meeting, was the opportunity to be able to have you celebrate the successes that you're out there in the community, and hopefully we'll continue to engage public interest in just understanding why Roseville is a place that's a little bit different than most.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. I know that today you gave presentations on one or more programs that you work in, and that represents hours of tireless work behind the scenes. So we appreciate the way you support our community, the way you support each other, and it's really evident, and we love hearing all about these things. We love seeing all your applications. It makes our jobs very, very hard every year because we have more applications than funding. But it's really amazing to see the impact that you're making and how that ripples out to all of us, right? It spurs on others to give back to their community. It provides support to each other. But we also want to acknowledge the number of hours that all of you are doing behind the scenes that never gets recognized, and that hard work that's really making a difference. And we appreciate all of you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to the next item, and you're all welcome to stay and continue the meeting with us or use this time to...
Wait, hold on. Before you guys all go, we are talking about the application later, and it really would be helpful if some of you were able to stay and kind of go through that. And if you have any feedback before you go about what's challenging in those questions and how we can improve that for you so that you're not like spending hours after working with folks all day long in a fried brain to try to fill this out for the future applications. So if you are able to stay, we would welcome that as we are discussing what those next questions are going to be.
And we're on item 6.1, so that's going to be 6.3 for reference. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 6.2, the elect chair and vice chair for the 2025-2026 funding cycle. And I will turn it to staff for this.
Right. So this item was carried over from the last meeting, and just to kind of remind you all, this annually a chair and vice chair shall be selected by the commission. Any voting member of the commission except a youth member can serve as chair and shall be seated at the next meeting. The length of the term for the chair and vice chair shall be 1 year. However, there is not limitations on the number of consecutive terms the chair or vice chair may serve. And just to inform Commission that while in the past we've had the new chair and vice chair move into their new roles after the vote, it is and it's fine to switch during the meeting. However, we are getting back on track with our administrative standards to be consistent, and we will have the new chair and vice chair seated at the next meeting. So that is it. You guys are free to discuss and decide who your next chair and vice chair will be.
Thank you. Let the discussion begin.
You just straight up nominate at this point?
Sure, if that's what
Sure.
yeah.
Just checking.
You guys are talkative tonight.
I think we're looking at this end because we've already had some shifts through that.
I've done it.
Unless you want to do it again.
I'm more than willing to step into a role, but I also want to give the opportunity to others to be able to participate in that. So I guess the first thing is for the chair position. Commissioner Parker, would you be interested in serving as the chair of the commission?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, there's one. Anybody want to?
I'll second.
We'll do a public comment before we vote.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have, seems like a mutual, anybody want to run for chair in addition? Not to take it, but. Okay. We can look at vice chair now. Well,
Do we need-
just, we're
We're going to
just,
do both of them at once, or do we need a public comment after each?
You can come to informal consensus
We have
on one or both at the same time and then move on.
We could do both. Okay.
yeah, it was both.
Commissioner Acosta, would you be interested in serving as vice chair?
Sure, I will accept that nomination.
Anybody else that would be interested in stepping into that role potentially?
Isn't it customary to nominate the people that aren't here?
They didn't let me do that last time, so. I think we've already been through that.
Okay.
So I nominate Commissioner Acosta as the vice chair.
Okay, it sounds like we have a consensus then. If no further discussion, I'll go ahead and open to public comment. We'll go ahead and close public comment. I will entertain a motion on the selection of our new Grants Advisory Chair, Commissioner Neva Parker, and our Vice Chair, Nina Acosta. Do I have a motion?
I will move as stated.
A second?
I second it.
Second, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and you're established. You'll remain in your seat for today, Bill. As soon as the next meeting, we'll move over.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Efficiency. Okay, now we'll go ahead and move to item 6.3, the review of the application questions, process, and scoring criteria for the 2025-2026 cycle. I'll turn it to staff for updates.
So each year, the commission reviews the past year's grant funding cycle documents and updates them as needed for the upcoming funding cycle. During the last cycle, the commission discussed reviewing the application questions attached to the agenda, and actually eventually on the screen, we will have the application questions. There's also a draft of the 25-26 scoring criteria and the 24-25 funding cycle surveys to aid in the discussion. Staff recommends the commission review the attached funding cycle materials for the fiscal year 25-26, edit as necessary, and approve the documents.
Thank you.
With opening it up to the public to ask questions or to provide feedback before we start our discussion? Is that legal?
You can have as many public comments as you feel would be helpful to you.
I just want to be respectful of the time of those that are here. If they wanted to provide comments and they needed to leave, I thought that might be helpful for our discussion. Is that okay with the other commissioners?
Absolutely. We're grateful that we have some people here to help share.
I think it makes sense because we have thoughts and feelings in my head, but it would be interesting to see what people say ahead of time, which might change that. So,
Yeah, so we'll go ahead then, since we have consensus, open it to public comment now for anything on this regarding the application, the process, scoring criteria, experiences, feedback.
Hello, my name is Axel. I'm with Life Steps. I do have a question regarding the budget. So our programs, we provide emergency assistance to seniors as well as multifamily. We have 2 sites here in Roseville. In the budget, it was hard to really define that. We don't necessarily budget specifically that emergency assistance on how much we'll need throughout the year because the needs change and differ. We do it compared to if a senior needs something mobility, if they need food, if they need clothing, whatever it may be, and for the families as well, we do emergency rental assistance. So we were trying to find a way to really define that in the budget because 100% of every donation that we receive goes directly to those services. We don't take anything for our operation. So that was one of the questions on how best to state that in the budget in this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe for the public comment, we're not doing back and forth, but we'll make your comment and talk about it further. Anybody else have any public comments?
I would just say that the application that we filled out this past year and the year before as well, we had no problem with the questions. We're a all volunteer organization. We do use a computer program to keep track of the students that the schools recommend to us. And so we can easily show what students were from what areas, and so we can break it down quite well. So really, I think your application is pretty good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Gary McDonald with Lighthouse. I wasn't prepared to go over the questions, but I read the first 4 and they were fine. I don't know if there's a way that you can kind of scroll through and just let us read the questions and then pop up if we see something that has been somewhat difficult to answer, unless you've got a copy of the questions, because I apologize, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
This is attached. I don't know how many extra are over there.
Maybe we can put them back on the screen. The first 4. You guys want me to have them scroll to the next, maybe the next 4?
Getting close. Yeah. Okay, you're all.
Next 4.
There it goes.
I think in the surveys, we had some feedback about redundancy in questions or needing clarity on some questions.
Right.
There were 2 specific, let me see if I can turn to it.
Like questions
survey.
13 and.
That's right.
Repetitious
15.
information and then clarity on some of them, I think.
Questions 12 through 18 are a little.
Was it 12 and 18?
I'm trying to remember, it's in the
18.
back, but I mean, like, for me, that whole series of questions could probably be reworked and condensed in some cases. But I think one of the survey responses, it was number 5, there's a pretty actually detailed breakdown of what they would like to see, whoever wrote this. But beyond all of that, I think those are kind of the range of questions we could probably go through and try and figure out, you know, which ones, because I just remember reading the applications thinking, okay, well, this question sort of, in order to answer that question, you would then sort of need to answer this question anyway, so maybe these 2 can be combined. I tried to organize that as I was making my notes the other day. My chicken scratch is hard to read, but I feel like we'll go through them.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point out that number 5 very specifically in question 2, and number 5 of the survey is question 2, does a pretty thorough breakdown of kind of what that person would like to see those range of questions kind of looked at.
you're saying question the community needs area, that one, that specific number 5, or?
No, the survey
Survey,
response.
5?
survey number
Yeah.
5, question number 2.
They mentioned question 13 and 15, and then also 13 and 21.
Yeah.
It's here since we're still in public comment, and we have a public comment.
From the Alliance. In the grand scheme of grant applications, I feel like the length of this one is very fair. I feel like you have a generous fund and the questions asked all were relevant to actual program tenants and things that we would need funding for, and if we'd received funding in the past. So actually going through the grant application process, I didn't find too much. If you could condense, it would make it easier on us. So if there's any duplication, less words is better. I did find that I actually had a harder time writing the report afterwards because I was finished with question 3, describing the accomplishments of the funding in the program, and then immediately on question 4, it indicated the results achieved by the program. And so I had just finished listing all of the statistics of our program that received funding and felt like I needed to list it again in question number 4. So those might actually be able to be condensed on the grant report afterwards, but the application process, again, maybe a little bit of condensing, but felt like it was a fair length. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was during the review of the applications, there were a lot of times when I was going back and forth because there seemed to be some redundant information in there in different places depending on how the question was read. So I made my notes based on my reviewability of the application as opposed to the production of the application.
Okay, I can, if everyone's comfortable with closing public comments so we can proceed with the discussion and we could open it up. Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment, and before we jump into the discussion, I know there was a question regarding the budgeting and how to do that. So that's going to be a question on here, if we can look at that one.
I mean, I have just a general comment, and we can kind of chat about it. I think last year was the first year where we really strongly encouraged, maybe even we had points with it, to do the budget narrative. Because I know in the past, there has been the space for the narrative, but not everyone has put that in. As a commissioner reviewing, I find that really helpful, because sometimes, you're familiar with your budget or the different line items, and it may not necessarily be as meaningful to us as we're reading through, 50 different grant applications. So I would say, specific to your question, if you're funding emergency needs and that can change from month to month, year to year, I would say estimate as best you can, not just for the grant application, but obviously for your organizational needs. But then use that narrative to help explain, I'm putting in a range here, or this is a high end of something based on the past 3 years, or whatever it is. Because I think the flexibility is there as long as you're explaining it to us. And that's just my thought.
I would agree.
I would too.
Yeah, I think listing what the emergency assistance is, a few categories, because I know for grants, at least what I'm looking at is what you're writing is the expectation that that's how you're going to spend the money. So if it's going to be in a few things, then you could say a general specific area. But if it's something and then you'd expend it on something completely different, that would be a little inconsistent. So as long as there's enough detail is what I'm looking for in that. And you could, like she mentioned, give us a range or something of that nature. Okay. Well, we could go ahead and now move to the discussion. So we have a few things in front of us. We have I'm going to propose, if we want to look at the surveys of what people were saying, if you guys have noticed any patterns of what stood out to you, or from that. And we don't have that for people to see up there. I don't know if we can, no, okay.
Because we don't, no.
Okay. So it's just an attachment of the surveys that were sent in, what people said, and you guys are picking up on some themes that some stuff was redundant.
Mm-hmm. That was said a couple of times.
Some of the,
but I think the survey number 5 has the most detail in some of the concerns or things that were challenging.
So it suggests that questions 13 and 15 request much of the same information. Question 13 says include key supporters, volunteer hours, collaborators, and donors. But question 15 also asks, does the organization have collaborative partners? Does the organization participate with other coordinating organizations? So similar similar things. And then question 13 also asks about donors, as does question 21, list other funding received or requested. So 13, 15, and 21, somewhat similar.
Can I add a comment on that one? So when I read 13, it's more about, describe the population, the number to be served, because the bold is the question, and then the italics are kind of just expanding on that. So the population, number to be served, how the proposed project program differentiates from similar services already in the community. I mean, while it does mention about, in the italics, supporters and volunteer hours, actually, we have the volunteers, I think, in an earlier question, too. Number 6, up there, it asks about volunteers.
11.
6 does too. Right?
Okay, but then 11 is specific to volunteers.
I guess where I was going with that, though, is the bold here feels like a unique question when I compare these other ones, like the 13, no, that was 13. The one on collaborative partners, 15. To me, that's a whole different answer in my mind. And while I can see the italics stuff can kind of maybe confuse things, and maybe we could work on that, the questions themselves, to me, are significantly different.
So I agree. I think we keep the bold and we remove the italic stuff and let them tell the story for that question and not have that guiding piece, because I feel like they would be able to understand their population and be able to describe that without kind of the suggestive things. And I think 15 does capture it, a different thing with their collaborations. And it's not just the collaborations, it's the description of their role and the responsibilities in that. So, I mean, I could list a number of partners on a grant application that just say, we support, but that's very different than 45,000 volunteer hours in a year, right? So I think that uniqueness would be good. I think we remove the italics from question 13 and just let it stand alone and let folks tell us about their experience.
Yeah, because I think that the ITAL actually confuses the question.
I agree.
Yeah, because if memory serves, question 13 was sort of the least answered question as I was going through the grant applications. And yeah, looking at that, the ITAL sort of does kind of like, okay, well, you're looking for how are we going to serve these people within the community, but then you're also asking this other question. So I would agree with that. I think it would make that.
Maybe just take off that second sentence, include key supporters, volunteer hours, collaborators, and donors, because those are included in other questions that we have, so.
I like that.
At least the second half.
Yeah, I think.
If not the whole thing.
The other one, it's the unique position. I mean, because that's one of the challenges when we're reading all the applications, how does this organization serve a population partly, and that's why 13 is still important, in Roseville, because now we have that focus of just
Right.
Roseville City. And how is it doing it in a way that, for other organizations out there that are doing the same sort of same service, what's unique about your group? And I think that's important as we're evaluating, especially I would say, in the past 3 years, we've had a fair amount of money because of ARPA, but this coming up now, we're not going to have the same resources. So it is going to be kind of a tighter, and understanding more about what's unique about your organization, I think, is helpful as we're reviewing the applications.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, then, so we say, describe the population, explain the process, and then we say, is the organization? Should we say something more along the lines of how is the organization uniquely positioned to serve the community?
I like that.
Okay.
I think
Which question was that?
number 13, just putting how in front of is.
Yeah, so taking out, like you suggested, include key supporters, striking that, but then making the question, how is the organization uniquely positioned?
I like that.
Okay.
And I think to Commissioner Ellison's point, it's, we do get a lot of food, mental health, those kinds of things, and it's how do we differentiate what's the uniqueness, what's the expansion, what's the new population, those kinds of things that I think this question in particular will capture.
Oh, now we go.
So then we would just add the how, and you guys are saying still keep the because of location, relationships, or staff skills, or it could just be, how is the organization uniquely positioned to serve the community, period?
Period.
Period?
Okay, yeah,
Okay. If
that's
you want to, then it kind of puts the power back on the applicant to figure out how they want to define that.
Well, then we move into question 14, which then asks, describe the project service area, right?
Is repetitive to 13, so we could probably just eliminate the entire question.
Yeah, because the requirement is City of Roseville, so in order to meet the qualifications, they would have to be serving in the city, period.
Okay, so then if we remove that, we would remove those italicized prompting and just, again, put the authority on the applicant to.
No, I think they're saying remove question 14 altogether.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think in our workshop, if we can make a note, since we're taking this whole question out, we just really want to emphasize all the funding now needs to be specific to Roseville.
It'll be in our guidelines, or it is in our guidelines as
In
well.
the gardening.
But just continue to reinforce, because I know there are a lot of organizations that have applied year after year over, 20-plus years it's been, that have served outside of Roseville too. So this is a big enough change that I want to over-communicate.
Well, and it's captured in 13. I mean, it says, explain the process used to ensure those being served are Roseville residents. So, yeah, and that's all caps and bolded.
So
we could underline it, too.
Wow.
And
So
part
for-
of that hopefully will be when I'm reviewing them, we go through this.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a lot of time to review it. So there might be, hopefully not that slips through, but however, that was something I know that because we did change with the REACH funding too. So to be really specific, that hopefully they're being very specific in their description that it is Roseville. And if not, then that would be something that would probably prompt me to reach out to them to make sure before I even finalized it and pushed it on to you guys.
Pushed it on.
Okay, in question 15, I have a proposal, get rid of question 11, and then for 15, in the italicized part, add the word volunteers, question mark.
I think collaborative partners are different than volunteers. I'm okay with removing question 11, but I think the rewording of question 15 would be acceptable.
So something along the lines of, does the organization have collaborative partners? I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I don't know what I'm saying. Go ahead.
I rewrote it as, does the proposed project, or does the proposed effort require collaborative partners, period? If yes, please describe the role relationship of each partner in that. So is what's being proposed to be done with the grant fund, does that require collaborative partners? Period. And then if yes, describe what those roles and relationships are.
I like that.
How does the do we want to specifically call out, please explain how your volunteers, how your organization utilizes
So
those
you're-
volunteers?
So you're kind of putting collaborative partners and volunteers in the same category?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we're going to eliminate question 11, which is how does the organization use volunteers, we have to somehow, I believe that's important. That was important to me.
I agree.
And so if we're going to eliminate question 11, we have to somehow figure out how we're going to say, okay, you have collaborative partners, which in some ways may also mean that we will be using some of their volunteers as well, right? Or no? I don't know.
We can, leave 11. I think
Yeah, I
that
think we
hasn't been
should-
a stumbling block for my review. It was
Okay.
that some of these other ones were collaborative partners, and there was some creativity that went in regards to how people defined what
that's
those
true.
were
Yeah.
in the
I would-
application.
I would wordsmith number 11 to say, please describe how this effort will utilize volunteers. What are their roles and responsibilities?
Yeah.
Because not all organizations utilize volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that begs the question, though. And I'd have to go back to look at the scoring criteria. I don't want to say, do we care about volunteers? We do. But for the purpose of grants and knowing that not all organizations use volunteers, and there's some good reasons why, I'm looking at Lighthouse over here, is that affecting our scoring criteria? Because then I kind of feel like it's nice to know, but if it really isn't helping us evaluate, do we need it?
the other side of that is that there are some organizations that are not as large as Lighthouse or like the food bank that leverage the volunteers to show that they are utilizing and being fiscally sound and putting all of the money that they're receiving towards the services to serve the individuals by instead of utilize, because they're not big enough to hire staff, and the grant funding isn't enough to be able to support a staff member sustainably, but being able to say we're leveraging or maximizing the amount that we're receiving by using this many volunteers to support the efforts of this program, I think that's important. And I think that, I think that would affect scoring, right? Because if they're like, well, we're asking for $25,000 and 10 of that is going to be to support a staff member to be able to implement this program, then they're really only utilizing $15,000 to actually impact the community. That makes sense.
So maybe the question will be, will the organization utilize volunteers for this project? If so, how? Is that what you're saying, kind of, or no?
Similar to that, just describing what that role is for this proposed project.
Yeah.
Just because, looking at the vast number, we do have some very small requests and we have some very large requests. And, some of the organizations that submit are reliant on volunteers, others are not, because they have a lot of other blended funding sources. And the point of this is to be able to provide as many services available to as many Roseville residents as possible. And so they leverage volunteers to be fiscally responsible when they're a smaller organization.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is the wordsmith to get a little bit more definition in regards to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But again, to Commissioner Carroll's point, I think is that in our scoring rubric somewhere to actually assign points to volunteers or not volunteers?
Okay, I changed my mind, so maybe we should keep 11, and I'll explain why. Because if you look at question number 13, in the italicized, it says, it's asking, to me, I would say yes, in the category of showing that there's a need, right? Because 13 is kind of showing a need, and it's saying describe volunteer hours, which we're removing. But if you are talking about the need and how it's uniquely positioned, I think it could be part of that criteria.
Yeah, I guess I was looking, as Commissioner Acosta was speaking about it, I was looking, on the scoring part, request is reasonable given the proposed project program budget and the organization's experience and capacity. Volunteers speak to the capacity. Additional funding support, it's more soft funding support in a sense, but by using volunteers. And you could read it into a few others. I'm totally fine keeping it in. I just want it connected back to how we're scoring.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I think this is a helpful discussion for people watching so they can see how we use that. Okay.
Okay, so how we want to reword it. I suggest, will the organization utilize volunteers for this project? If so, how? Unless somebody else has, I didn't capture what we were saying adequately, or no?
That sounds great.
Okay.
I like that. Or we can do the, instead of if so how, describe the role and responsibility.
Okay.
Eat that, what you're looking at. This is 11, correct?
Yeah. Will the organization utilize volunteers for this project? If so, describe.
Roles and responsibilities of the volunteers.
Yeah.
And again, it speaks to the capacity and the ability to implement for the smaller organizations.
Which then goes to 21, right? No, 15? Does the organization have collaborative partners? You wanted just to...
I like how Commissioner Chris had it worded.
Well, I had proposed it, and this was one of the ones that is in the scoring rubric, that it was always and I always tried to dice out what a collaborative partner was and what was required to actually score points for that effort. So I just reworded it from, it says, does the proposed effort require collaborative partners? Question mark. And then if yes, describe the role responsibility of each partner in the provision of the proposed project.
I like it.
I would change provision to implementation.
Oh, Okay.
in that second part.
Okay, Mike?
Okay.
All right, can you reread that one? So I can get it, if I don't get it now, I'm going to be replaying this, but just,
You have to do that.
No.
Okay. Does the proposed effort require collaborative partners? Question mark.
okay.
And then that second sentence is, if yes, please describe the role, relationship of each partner in the implementation of the proposed program project. Just change one word in that second sentence.
Would it make a difference if you said does the proposed effort versus does the proposed project?
Well, sometimes it's a project, sometimes it's an effort,
Yeah.
depending on what they're doing. I mean, it's,
So you're just trying to be consistent?
well,
Each partner.
Trying to be as encompassing as we can be.
Yeah. So, well, I think
Because sometimes they're like the food bank was the lift thing, that they're one-time specific, they're not necessarily a project.
yeah, and the effort is to,
Serve the
yeah,
residents. Yeah.
yeah.
So then, in the other portions of the question where we have, please describe the role relationship of each partner in the implementation of the proposed effort, or do we want to keep program project?
I think you said keep program project for that
Yeah,
part.
we could change that to effort also to be consistent between the
Yeah.
sentences. Yeah, okay. Edit that, Toby.
Then,
at
but
Toby.
then, uh-oh.
Have you read it one more time, how you guys want it, and then
But
just to
how-
make sure.
Can I say something, though?
Sure.
Look at the next question that has project program. Like, how many times are we going to have to go through and change project program to
It's
effort?
find and replace.
Yeah. So, I mean,
In
like,
program project, replace with effort.
So you guys want effort changed, you want it changed throughout, so program,
my point.
project, the effort?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my point. I'm sorry, that was obnoxious the way I said it. That was my
It's a
point.
valid point, that's
Yeah.
great. We don't want to turn this into more confusing, which is, this is where wordsmithing gets to be a challenge. Under live fire, right? Most of the time I'm better.
And then I think the other question that they were talking about was 21. Please list other funding received or requested for this effort. Include funder amount. Also include any fundraisers or donate. I think that can stand alone now and is fine.
Yeah, no, me
I
too.
agree.
Yeah. I think when we took out the italics on that other question, I like this question.
I do too.
When was that?
agree.
21?
And I didn't think I have anything else personally.
So, let's go to 19 real quick. I took out the second half of that. So basically, identify if there was a previous grant award and if they've been spent and to date. And then we're asking almost for like a summary of what it was for.
Yeah, I think I think we could take it out and there's a way to deal with it, but I think this was in here for new commissioners who didn't have access to the prior year annual reports. But I think if I remember right, we had added that as an attachment for new commissioners who couldn't see it this past year. So that way, they can tell from here if they had a past grant, and then everyone would have
Go
access to
back
the
through into
information.
Zoom grants to see the
Yeah.
past reports.
But are they part of the meeting documents? Like, we have, well, the reports
They're
that we
published.
received, are
Aren't
they published?
on the website?
We do a combination.
Well, so you,
compilation of it.
yes, you'll get a summary.
Yeah.
So that's being worked on right now. And then the reports themselves,
Zoom
other than
grants.
what, I emailed those to you guys, but it's not, I didn't necessarily, it's not part of the agenda.
Got it.
So that was just because what you guys have access to go into and read.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know. I'd have to check. I think you're right. I don't know how it worked last year for the new commissioners to go back.
They can't go back. You can only go forward. So basically, I think we could take out the second part of the question, and then just as if so every commissioner has the same information. It's just a matter of the annual reports for any new commissioners that have joined this cycle, it might be 2 cycles back, to be able to send those out as part of the meeting
We could
documents.
do that. So, okay.
I think that's best, yeah.
I guess I'll Sort of the unpopular opinion. I like this because it was located in one place and it was a brief summary, and if they've already done it, they could just copy paste it so it's located in one site. But I'm sensing the majority of people would rather have it removed.
Just looking to streamline things, and yes, it shouldn't be much, but I think if some people see that as effort as like a mini annual report, then we
I
don't want to
agree.
put that burden on them, because they've already done it.
I think, yeah. I think the first part of that question was more something I focused on than the second.
If we're limiting the second half, can we also add, if we're keeping and accomplishments, can we also keep and any challenges?
Yeah.
Because to Commissioner Reed's point, that's helpful to know why they're not spending or why there was a delay.
May need to repeat that to make sure she's.
It's part of that question.
Should change to 2023, 2024, right?
When she does them, she'll change it to 23, 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, sorry, Jonathan was trying to, I'm trying to keep up with all these changes. So for 19, go ahead and read off how you guys want it to read.
So it's the first sentence, and all you're doing is after the so far.
Well, hold on. We're going to eliminate and. So after spent to date, it's going to be a comma.
Okay?
Accomplishment so far, comma, and any challenges encountered. Encountered?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I need a
Works
ruling.
for me.
That works.
And you're taking off and achieving the outcomes described in your grant application, correct?
Well, also.
The whole second.
The whole second
sentence, where it starts with also
Also
include,
include,
we're
okay.
taking all of that out.
Okay.
So it'll just be the comma, accomplishments so far,
And
comma, and challenges encountered.
You would like that part of it, right?
Yeah, I like everything she said.
Okay.
Okay.
How'd you got that?
The other question that we had before we close this out, and this was something that I think we brought back to staff and council, was the number of attachments and what was legally required for the attachments, because that was one of the things that the survey said, that there was a lot of attachments, or some things were asked to be described that they could attach, but we don't want their whole articles of incorporation nonprofit. We just wanted those pieces, but we needed clarity on if we could reduce attachments or not.
Unfortunately, no. And actually, we had to add an attachment. So
That the Levine Act is a new.
Yes.
So I think that would, for those of you who've stayed, thank you, and for those watching, thank you. But yeah, that's a new one about their political contributions.
Conflict of interest statute that comes into play for political contributions if anybody's running for an election or appointed positions, such that currently the threshold is $250. It would create a reportable disclosure obligation for that commissioner if they then are acting on an applicant to prevent a conflict of interest.
Okay.
those particular forms, so like the Board of Authorization form, that is a form that's on there. They just have to sign it and reattach it. Assurance and certifications as well, the form is provided. The Levine Act form will be now provided. Copy of their 501c3 or 4. Copy of the agency's registration renewal fee and report, the RF, which I'll be honest with you, that was probably one of the hardest documents with organizations, and probably the one that caused a lot of back and forth between nonprofits, but it is required. And a copy of the agency's current, so this is where you guys, the current fiscal year budget, you had asked for it to be detailed for their overall agency budget, and I think that's probably where there's some confusion, because you asked for the agency budget, and then I know on the questions it asked for the program budget. So I think that's where maybe some of the, between the organizations, it's like, you're asking for two budgets. Well, really, from what this sounds like, it's basically the overall budget.
Correct.
And then
a
particularly
narrative for the
what
project.
right, for the project itself. So we try to be really accurate in explaining that. And again, I'll make detailed, so for like the January meeting, to really go through some of these, and probably my goal is to maybe change it up a little bit with some of the slides and things like that, just so that they really understand. The business license, a copy of the organization's active registration with the Secretary of State is another one that, to be honest with you, kind of hung up some of the organizations. And then I know you have here a list of board members, so I think that in the application, it asked potentially that, and then, I can't remember what question it was, but now you're
it's number
specifically, and I know that was, I think it was in this, one of the surveys too, where,
Using in terms of board members and key personnel.
correct, correct.
Oh, I think it's number,
Go ahead.
it's number 6.
Question number
Do we
6.
need to have
Just a list there. That's not
number
listing the
6?
names.
Do we need to
that's
have
just
that question if
numbers,
it's in the
Numbers there,
attachments?
It's not.
For number 6 on the application, it says number of board members, paid staff, part-time, full-time, and volunteers.
So couldn't we eliminate that with the attachments? In the attachments? If
I'm
they're
trying to
giving
think.
us
I
a
don't
list
think
of
it's
board
necessarily
members and
required
key
for us to
personnel.
That's,
Just to
that's
see
one of the
who's-
things that I find value in is seeing
Okay.
who those people are. So getting,
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, is that they're in the attachments, so do we need number 6? Question number 6, that just
It's
says
just
the
a number.
number.
It's just a
It's just a
number.
number. I think it's easy to see, and then we can kind of refer back and see, oh, the board members listed here are 2, but it says on here,
For
whatever.
me, for the board members, it does help because when, especially when these are signed, the Board of Authorization and the assurance and certifications, it says specifically, like, one has to be the board president if you don't have this. So I have had to reference the list of board members just to see, because sometimes they might get the secretary to sign, and it's like, it's.
No, I like that, like the
Okay.
detail
But
there.
you're
I'm
wondering
looking at number
question
6,
six.
where it just says, how many are there?
Right.
Like, do we need both, is my question to the commissioners.
I like having it. I don't think it's burdensome to put the number.
Okay.
But I do have a question. So I noticed in Survey 5, they were trying to get clarification on that. Did last year we do a separate list of board members and key personnel?
yes, we did.
Yes, and that was a question you guys brought up last time about, because I think I had to go back on my notes, your key personnel for the program seeking, you wanted to know specifically that program. So that, I think, is what the difference is. You got your board members, and then specifically, you guys had asked to have a list of those running that program specifically. Now, you could change that if you don't want to know specifically for the program itself, but that was something I know we added from last year's discussion.
One of the reasons for that was we had several that had specific personnel that they were looking to fund that required licenses or certifications or things like that. And so we needed to make sure that we had who the staff were and that they had uploaded, that they had the proper credentials to be able to implement the programs that they were proposing.
So what was the confusion then? The
I think it's.
I'm sure it was more of, if I read the survey, it was more of like, it's just a lot of attachments, that being, you've got a list of board members, and then probably, that's two, some of them may see that as the similar, because maybe they're using their board members to run the program.
Yeah.
But like you had mentioned, if some of them are counselors or anything like that, then that was specifically in there to match up the certifications.
That they had to
Yes.
also upload the certifications and their licensure that it was on the up and up.
We also had, some of the organizations were national organizations, so their boards were not involved. So we
True.
really need to see the key personnel that were going to actually be implementing the project and the
Correct.
program.
Correct.
So it is a separate group of people.
So it just says reword the description of the board member attachment. So you ask for board members, officers, and key management positions. We don't have an
So
example of
unfortunately,
what
I
that-
don't have the
Yeah.
actual, what it says in Zoom grants for that specific. I can take a look at that, but yeah, it does say reword the description of the board. So I guess it says, we ask for board members, officers, directors, and key management positions, including their appointment dates, when term expires, and affiliations. And here it says, key managers are completely different from board members. And they do to have term expirations and affiliations in the sense that board members do. If you want a list of key executive staff, you can ask for it separately. So I guess we just need to be specific in what you guys, and I'll have to look at what the
We
wording
need two
is.
separate documents,
Yeah.
or within the document you provide, make sure you include these pieces of information. Maybe it was just confusing to them. I don't know. Okay.
I think this year, I mean, you have added it because I guess we were talking about it. I don't think last year we had these as 2 separate bullets, but I remember.
So this fiscal, yes, it was added in this last one we just had, so 24, 25, we did have it in there. Because you guys discussed it last, I guess, a year ago.
22,
You were
23.
specific, because I remember adding that. You were adamant at somehow knowing the actual program itself.
Okay, then yeah, I'm confused by the comment here, and I'm
Yeah.
confused by my memory of when I was opening attachments that I didn't confuse between those two, because I thought they were all together.
I think a lot of folks, if my memory serves, some organizations had it on one document, and then some organizations had two separate documents. And so maybe that's where the confusion lies in that. Are we supposed to just do one document, or do you want us to upload two documents? Or, I don't know.
And it's up to you. I mean, for me, it made it easier when I go through, because I do.
The checklist.
I unfortunately kill a lot of trees, and I print all this stuff because it's easier for me to go through, but I go through and I actually do a checklist, and each application gets a green. If it's there, it's great, and I'll, go through it, great, and I'll move through. And if not, then that's something that when I do reach out to the organization, I'll say specifically, hey, this is what you're lacking, or this is what we're looking for and we need in order for me to, approve it. So I was really specific in that last year because that's kind of the guidance I thought.
Yeah.
So it does.
That's the easier one in our eligibility determination window for us to handle.
Yeah.
Do you guys think it would be a good time to add a public comment, see if anybody has anything to say, or should we continue the discussion?
Has anything to add?
I'm good, yeah, I think we got to the end of it.
Actually,
Okay.
I think Gary.
I do have one more. Can I say something just real quickly? I think another thing that somebody had was actually like setting, or just an expected word limit. I don't know if that's anything we want to talk about, but that was in the survey suggestions. So
There is a way so we can limit the words if you'd like, or.
I don't know if it was necessarily like let's limit it. I think it was more along the lines of, well, how many words do you want to see? Like, I can answer this question in 100 words, or are you looking for more detail? That kind of thing. So I think the word length, or the number of words, was sort of like a key, helped people try to figure out the level of detail in which they were supposed to answer the question. And so maybe that's more along the lines of something we talk about at the workshop, and say, because each grant is different. I don't know. I mean, it was just one of the survey
Yeah.
things.
And and if you do want to limit, I just need to know, because that is something I can set in there. If not, then it would just be open-ended, and you could get 10 pages on one question.
Sure.
So, but you're right. I think the workshop is a good place to explain that, but I think beforehand, too, I just need to know, do you want it limited so that it is something that is preset?
I don't want to limit it personally. No,
I don't think we should.
I don't think that's helpful.
Because another survey said they didn't like being limited, so I think.
I mean,
keep
I
it
have to look,
unlimited.
I don't know if there is, they only give you 60,000 characters, I'm sure there's a limit at some point to the system. I don't know what that is, but I do know it gives you the ability to add if you want to limit. So we can let it go to whatever the system does.
Yeah, I think it's more just an issue for the folks that haven't written grants before. What level of detail are you looking for? And so again, like I said, the number of words is more of a measurement for that person to decide. I really think it's something to have a conversation about in the workshop.
I agree.
Than to make it any kind of limitation or anything in the or you have to have at least this many. I don't know. That doesn't seem useful to me. But in the workshop, I feel like it's a better conversation to have.
Okay.
I think
would
there's
ag-
consensus.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I think, and other grants do limit that you only have 2 pages to speak to this question, or 1 page to speak to that question, or you're limited to 1,000 characters. So I think it is helpful, and I think we can explain in the workshop that we're looking for the concise, robust explanation. We don't do what you do, and so we just need to know what you do and why this is relevant and important and a need.
Thank you. That's the only other thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to add something. Okay, then I'll go ahead and open it to public comment to see if any of the participants.
Oh, it's good.
That's why.
You were talking through it, a couple things came to mind. Is a wet signature still a requirement?
It's either wet or a DocuSign. So as long as you DocuSign and have that Adobe DocuSign, that is a city requirement.
So an electronic will not.
Right, so you
Okay.
can't type in your name and then it has to be the DocuSign or a wet and then just scan it in, yeah.
It's my board
Yeah.
that gets me. My other just feedback is on the volunteer number. A quantity is always helpful for us. We have 39 staff. If we didn't have 2,500 volunteers, we couldn't do our job. So the quantitative might be helpful. I just say that. And then finally, just a suggestion, because I ran a lot of grants, is to better, for your benefit, it might be helpful to have a naming convention suggestion to say, GAC board member, GAC, so that you know clearly what that document is and what is required. Just a suggestion to make it a little cleaner for you.
I think there is a specific, I have to look, because I know that was a comment.
don't remember it, or
Okay,
I-
because I know someone commented about labeling
Yeah,
them specifically. Why is it that they have to be labeled a specific way? And they found, instead of just uploading the document being budget, whatever, like we had a specific, but I will double check. And I think that is why, because when they do review, as well as I
Yeah,
know when I'm
yeah.
looking at it and I could see it specifically says that, then I know that that's what it is, but I'll double check too, the labeling.
Forget that,
Yeah.
that then.
No, so thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think you remember me.
Yes, we do, Gary. Yeah.
So there's just a couple things as we were going through this, and so I'm going to jump around a little bit. There is some, I remember there being some confusion between active registration and the RRF1, which it's the same thing, isn't it?
No.
I just Googled it, and I Googled active registration nonprofit, and it came up RRF1. So that I find a little confusing, because when I go to the website, it's hard to find the RRF1, and I wind up getting something else. It is the RRF1, but they don't call it that after you've submitted it. If you don't have the original copy that they gave you, and you get a copy off of the site, it's called something else, which is just weird.
Yeah, it's a big, Jonathan might have to jump here with me because I know we kind of went through this. There is a page that on the Secretary of State website that
Yeah,
it shows, and I know some of the organizations would provide that, so I don't know if you guys get it after you submit and it shows that. It kind of looks like, and that's kind of my goal too for the workshop, to show specifically, and I thought I had that in the last one, but I do want to really hone in on that one. But it was one page, and then the RRF is more of it is a financial document that we found that I don't know if it's after you guys submit, but on some of them, it will say, it's like a stamp time date that the state does show that once it's submitted, because I know that we have gotten a few that will come in and it'll have the date, but I'm like, did they just fill this out? Like, did they just do this or not? And then when we would go on the Secretary of State, sometimes it'll say it's incomplete. So it's like the documents aren't. So that's why I'm curious. It's good to know from what
It
you're
is a bit of an issue because this is what I believe, and I've been doing this for a number of years, and I still don't remember. The RRF1, they send it to you, they send a copy stamp that they received it. But if you lose that, or if it doesn't make it to your desk and you don't scan it and save it, you cannot get a copy. If you have to go on the website, you can download something, but it's not called RRF1 and it's not stamped. But it shows that you're current. That's why I'm confused between the active registration and the RRF1. So that's just kind of an ongoing confusion that happens to me every year because I normally it doesn't come to my desk. But I try to be careful to get it, but often it does not. So that's been confusing and difficult to provide. So that's the first thing. And then second of all, it's a great conversation that you're having between volunteers and partner agencies because they're totally two different things. And we normally don't get volunteers from other partner agencies. So that rarely happens within nonprofits. We might share volunteers, but we don't have volunteers from other agencies, if that makes sense. So that's a great discussion. But I also did want to clarify a couple things, that using volunteers does not mean you're necessarily efficient. I used to be the state director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, so I was in charge of the whole entire state, and we had tens of thousands of volunteers. And it was probably one of the most bureaucratic, poorly run organizations in the state of California, and they're a huge organization. And secondly, I was the Senior Gleaners executive director, their first executive director ever, and I was hired because they were in trouble with the Secretary of State and they were going to lose their 501c3 because they were so poorly run by volunteers. So it was 100% run by volunteers. So there's a difference between volunteers and efficiency, and also large and small. You can be large and have volunteers and be small, and that doesn't determine your efficiency. It really depends upon the organization, how well it's run. Now there is, I used to serve on foundation committees, so foundation committees and review grants, and I've reviewed grants for the Placer Community Foundation as a volunteer, so I'm familiar with that, and you guys have a huge job, and I'm glad I'm not doing your job. And I applaud you for everything you do. But there's a thing called, in your 990 tax return, if you have $200,000 in revenues or $500,000 in assets, you have to fill out a statement of functional expenses, and that's divided between administration. So you have your total costs. The next three categories is fundraising, allocated costs, administrative allocated costs, and program allocated costs. So that's how I know that 96 cents of every dollar goes to programs, which makes us, I would put that against any nonprofit in the United States. And we don't really use a lot of volunteers. Having time to sit and listen to the conversation, I just realized we do. Our interns are volunteers. We service clients using interns, so I would count them as volunteers. And we use a tremendous amount of interns because they're in college getting their degree. We don't pay them, but we supervise them. So in the future, thank you for the conversation, I will include them as volunteers. But just because you pay people doesn't mean that they're not efficient. When I pay a counselor, and that counselor is seeing clients every day and every hour or doing the paperwork associated with that, 99% of that person's time is going to be allocated to programs. So just because you pay someone doesn't mean they're administration. So just a really fruitful conversation. It helped me in my next application. But there is some confusion with the active registration and getting it after the fact. And then, again, the volunteers and partner agencies is completely different. I don't know. I always suggest to foundations that they ask the question, what does it say on your statement of allocated expenses on your 990 tax return, which is filed with the IRS? So thank you for your time. I know I went over 3 minutes.
No, great. Great information. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see other public comments. I will go ahead and close public comments and come back to our discussion. So
The one thing that I have left, we haven't gone to yet, is the review criteria. I'm not looking to change the scores, but wanting to have a discussion with my fellow commissioners, knowing that we're going to have less money and probably more applications than we had this year. I'm wanting to know if there is any interest or any way that we can try to align how we do the reviews. When we have small grants all the way up to, $100,000 requests, how do we right-size that, or how do we look at evaluating that in a way that almost compares like apples to apples? I know following their criteria and looking at all of that stuff, I think guides that conversation. But amongst all of us, I know we have a lot of discussion when we're discussing how we reviewed and how we scored of just interpreting things differently. I don't know if I articulated that well enough, but when we look at things on our review thing, or our review criteria, that the requested funds are going to achieve the impact, how do we determine that? That seems very general to me, and it can be interpreted a lot of ways. Somebody that gets $5,000 to provide, 250 walkers to senior living is very different than suicide prevention with licensed clinical counselors, and the cost is obviously very different. But both are going to score relatively well on that, if that makes sense.
It does, and there is a bit of subjectivity to this, and I don't want to call it a bias, but there are going to be people that, depending on how familiar you are with operations, and have a tendency to gravitate towards some programs versus others. Which is why we have the ranking now that hopefully takes some of that perceived bias out of it, because we kind of put everybody in together, and it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then rank those out. And right, that was the attempt, was the scoring, and then the ranking hopefully took a little bit of that out of there, because I'm not sure that we could put enough definition to those things to have everybody consistently score them with the same criteria in mind, because everybody's going to interpret this a little bit differently.
No, and I don't want to limit that. I don't want to take any of that away. I think one of the challenges that I personally have is that I look at the intention of why this fund was created. I look at what the needs are, and then I look at the community and how it's grown, but also has that small community feel. That's why people want to live here, the quality of life and being able to know your neighbors, all of those things. And so when we get applications, I think and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong, and I appreciate the wisdom on the panel here, but like my interpretation is I start with the smaller organizations that are growing, are seeing a need in the growth of our community and looking at that. And then it's hard to look at other ones that have significant other funding sources. To me, it's hard for me to balance definition of need, I guess, in that particular statement, because like a local church doing food bank stuff is very different than the large Placer County Food Bank that has 2,500 volunteers, right? And so they're essentially doing a very similar thing. And so I guess I'm just looking for clarity on how we balance those things in terms of our scoring and ranking. And I think maybe it is the ranking discussion.
Well, but this is part of the reason that we came up with the different categories that and we haven't assigned a percentage of funds to each of those categories, but we have the one-time projects trying to get some, use that as seed money to new initiatives and those sort of things. Money for the small applications, those that might not have the capacity to be able to do a larger project. And then, of course, there for a while, most of the applications were going towards mission support. They were paying utilities and rent.
Right.
And some of the direction from the council was, we want to see that spread around a little differently. So we came up with a different way of being able to do that. And I'm more than willing to consider other things, but yes, there is some subjectivity that goes into all of this review.
Maybe it's the rankings. I know that when we did the rankings, we did them all together. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, so I appreciate patience and grace. But like maybe we look at each section and rank them in those sections and then come together, because it really is hard to look at the small grants and the one-time mission support and then compare that to the mission support category that has the bulk of our applications.
We rank them separately in each category. Small requests are compared against other small requests. Mission operational support are compared. So they're compared separately.
Okay.
And then when you called out specifically, this number 4, requested funds achieve an impact on the identified need. One of the things I like to do, and it's not an exact 1-for-1, but when I'm scoring here, it's like, where is the question that addresses this?
Gotcha.
And so for that one, number 17, define the anticipated outcomes for this project or program or effort. I don't know where we landed. How will success be measured? Because to me, you could have a great idea for a program, and that should be included in the scoring rubric, but then does it actually achieve what you set out? That's kind of a different thing. And it is subjective. Some of this is surveys.
Right.
Did you like getting the service? Yes. Others are outcomes more, we can see from last year to this year, we had, whatever the number is. So it
Right.
is subjective. It's dependent on what they put in their application. But that's one of the things I kind of look at and how it filters across the different categories.
Okay. No, I just want to have the discussion because I just feel like it's going to be tighter this year. And I really want to make sure that I know it's subjective. I think we all bring different levels of expertise and understanding of all of these different things, the communities we live in, all of those things. I just want to make sure that I wasn't missing something, or if there wasn't a way to be able to have more clarity. But I guess we can ask our new commission member, having read through these things, if there's, like, facing the first review, maybe you have a different perspective of, is it clear, like, how to score things based on the questions that you saw in the review?
And if you need a minute to think, I can jump in because I have.
Not to put you on the
no,
spot.
No, you're not. It's clear to me at this moment, but I also haven't had it
Looked
like
at
directly in front of me yet. So like looking through it, I'm like, oh yeah, I get how I'm answering all these, but that's different when something's in front of you. So I don't have a ton of feedback right at this moment. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. That's still helpful, given a fresh eyes. I was going to add, you said apples to apples, and I'm anticipating, like you said, we're not going to have as much money, so it is hard to compare a small grassroots to a large, and we do
Correct.
have the separate categories. And I asked ChatGPT the same question, how do you do that? And some of the things it said is like looking at large organizations and making sure they have a clear goal for long-term sustainability and making sure they have a higher impact. So maybe holding them to that. And the closest I can think of is 10. I do try to look at the budget to see how reasonable it is, and overall the funds, right? So if we have applicants that are doing great, but if we funded them fully, they would take a big percentage of what we have. So using this to figure out the impact on the need of how to, because it is comparing an apple to an orange if it's grassroots. And then it said for smaller organizations, looking at more community-specific targets. So I think number 4 would be how I would view that, and number 10.
Yeah.
4 is achieve an impact on the identify needs. So for a small grassroots, like looking at the specific versus a long-term, making sure, that looks more, I don't know, long-term. I'm just throwing ideas out, but.
No, that's helpful. I think the other thing that I look at in terms of sustainability for both large and small, that does help me kind of look at it, because if we're looking for, like, if a small organization says we're going to use this to fund this position, then I'm like, well, what's your plan for next year? Or are we just laying somebody off and now there's a need in our community, right? So I do kind of level set that. I just was trying to figure out on a leaner year, because my 2 years have have lovely been extremely generous, and this is my first lean year, and so I want to make sure that I'm going into that very clear. So
I think also what I'm ultimately hearing is how are we going to do this next year when we're evaluating everything? And I mean, I had one funding cycle, one meeting for that, and we're figuring out, okay, how are we going to do that this time? And I think the thing that you're asking is more along the lines of when we do the evaluation process and we have that meeting, how do we organize that meeting and that evaluation process? Not this one, but that evaluation process to make it more fair. Because from my perspective, there were a few maybe smaller grants that we didn't really get to because of time, or because we were now at that point, we have funded everything.
It ran out of money.
We ran out of money. And so to me, that's sort of speaking to what you're talking about. That being the case, I think maybe we need to kind of, rather than every year reinventing the wheel and how we're going to go ahead and talk about doing the funding meeting that we do, like maybe we, I don't know.
Structure the funding meeting.
Exactly. Figure out how to do that.
And maybe that's a different
deal.
that's a different conversation for a different meeting. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Again, like I was trying to figure that out going into a leaner year.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So given that we're reviewing a few things, any suggestions or edits for scoring? I don't hear a consensus of touching this or changing this.
I have some. Okay, I say something? So for the second scoring question, it like mentions them for us to grade how success is measured, but the question that relates to that is number 17, and I feel like it should be higher up to relate to kind of the same style of questions.
When you say higher up, what do you mean?
Like put it maybe between like 8 and 9, because 9 asks what's the major goals of your organization, so it's kind of like relating to what success they feel like it should have. Because it would have been easier for me to grade, because I feel like as it was kind of going in order as I was going down, and then I had to go back up once I got to question 17, because the criteria for success was in the second question.
I think it would be great to go right under number 10. Moving 17 under 10. What are your goals?
Oh, I was thinking.
What are your accomplishments? And then putting in 17. Maybe?
I was thinking after 9, but I think is that what you suggested, after 9
Yeah,
or
like-
after 10?
9 or 10, like either, they're like similar in a way.
The only thing, I don't mind moving it up, but I think if we move it up that high, they haven't explained what the program or project is yet. So I think, because, mission, goals, accomplishments, and then we need them to describe what they're proposing and then ask how they're going to measure it, I think. That's at least my view.
So then do we move the review criteria question number 2 down?
Wait, so
So question number 2 on the review criteria matches question number 17.
yeah.
So do we move it from number 2 on the review criteria to go in the order like she's describing? Rather than moving question 17 up?
Yeah, I'm indifferent.
But question 2 already says describe. I understand that, but her suggestion, Commissioner Unidad's suggestion was to move to question 17 below 9 or 10, and then the argument was that the program hadn't been described yet, however, it has in question 2, right? Am I?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a short one, but yeah, I guess we could do that. To me, I kind of, the evidence of community support, the population that's going to be served, the next few questions are all kind of, all right, what's your idea and how you're really doing this, and then how are you going to measure success? So, I normally 2, because it's just a couple sentences, 50
Right.
words or less. We could put it under 2 then.
That's okay. I was just trying to get a clearer picture of what we were, okay. So now the suggestion is to move question 2 in the scoring scale to where now?
Which one did you have to go back to? Do you remember?
Number 2.
Right, but if, what question were you on when you had to go back up?
17.
Number, question? Which question did I have to go back on?
So when you were doing the review side by side, you had said that you were following the scoring criteria and you were matching question to question. And then you got to question 17, which correlates with number 2, and you had to go back.
I think I ended off on 6, because number 15 was about the collaborative partners, and then scoring criteria 6 relates to how collaborative partners increase efficiency and stuff.
So do you think we can move number 2 down to number 6? Or, no, I'm sorry, make it number 7 and shift that?
I'm fine with that.
Moving the question 17 to,
Are we talking this?
Yeah.
that make sense?
Number 2.
Get what you're saying?
Would that work? Okay. So Toby, the proposal is?
Yeah.
On the scoring
I
sheet,
didn't
to
confuse
move
me.
question number 2 to under question number 6, and however that renumbering needs to happen.
2 is the new.
Become question 6.
That's fine.
Question 7, I think, but move 3 up to 2.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
So interesting how people do things. Interesting, okay.
Okay. Nice. Other than that, rubric look good? Yep. Okay.
And we did application, check, so
Ask really quick before we go back and vote, just to make sure I got all the updates on the questions. So maybe I can, that works. Because I rewrote them and I just want to make sure. So I have just for the applications, you guys are, for number 11, you want to update to read, will the organization utilize volunteers? Question. If so, please describe roles and responsibilities of volunteers.
Will the organization utilize volunteers for this project?
For this project?
Or effort, or whatever words we're
Oh,
using.
yeah, for this effort, okay. Question mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then I think it'll be confusing otherwise. Yeah, of course we use volunteers.
Yeah,
No, we
okay.
don't.
So will the organization utilize volunteers for this effort? And if so, please describe roles and responsibilities of volunteers. Okay. Number 13 was the next one. I have described the population, number to be served, and how the effort differentiates from similar services in the community. Explain the processes used to ensure those being served are Roseville residents and follow the funding guidelines. And then in the kind of italicized, it's how is the organization uniquely positioned to serve the community because of location, relationships, or staff skills?
Nope,
No?
stop at community. Period after
Stop at
community.
Got it.
And the
Okay.
rest of it is removed.
See, I'm glad I'm asking. Okay.
We don't want you to
Stop at
have to
community.
re-watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Thank you. All right, number 14 you're removing.
Yes.
Okay, 15, this is what I'm going to need help on for some reason. All right, I have, does the proposed effort require collaborative partners?
Yes.
Question mark. If yes, describe the roles, relationships of each partner in the provision of the effort.
No, in the implementation.
Implementation.
Back, so if yes, describe the role, relationship
Of each partner in the implementation
in the implementation, okay.
of the proposed effort.
Implementation of the proposed effort. Okay. That was it for that one? Yep. All right. And then I have 19. If your organization received a, we'll update that, grant award, please provide the amount, funds spent to date, accomplishments so far, and any challenges encountered.
Correct. Perfect.
And you guys are, number 17 is staying where it's at, correct?
Correct.
I think we talked about switching the words project and program to effort on all the questions for consistency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I?
17
Yeah.
has the project program.
Which one? 19, did I say it?
She's going to
Please
find
provide-
and replace in Word.
Yeah, we didn't tell you all the ones, but
Through in the scoring sheet as well.
Yes.
If you wanted to replace all of those.
good catch.
May I bring up one thing since we're done with questions?
In a minute or less.
Forgot to mention this. The organization's mission, do we want to say like organization's mission statement? Or do we want to just leave it as what's the organization's mission? Does that make sense? Am I
I mean, it makes sense, but I think it's fine. I
fine
think
as is? Okay,
they
it hasn't
can-
been an issue?
They can add the statement if they want to,
Okay.
or.
I think.
All right, so you want to leave it, organization mission?
Yes.
Okay.
On the scoring sheet, we're moving number 2 down to number 6.
Under number 6?
Under number 6,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
Just a clarification, do we want to do the survey again next year? I like the idea of doing that. Okay.
On the quote summary sheet, we need to strike the word ARPA from what's in your packet.
And the which,
The quote summary sheet for
okay, that's it.
Can I move that we accept the changes as discussed?
I was looking, we have to open to public comment first. So let me go ahead and open public comment. Given no public comment, I'll close public comment. And application process was the other thing. I think we're good with that, right? We talked about it. Okay. So, go ahead.
I move that we make the changes as discussed on the application and scoring criteria.
I will second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion to approve the edits have been made, and that moves us now to item 7, the commissioner and staff report. So if any commissioners have anything they would like to report to staff, were you going to report something? Okay.
I do have a question for staff. This is now the season where we can visit organizations, right? And we just have to notify you and council so that we can make sure that there's not like 4 of us going and violating
Talking about
Brown.
a specific event or just a site visit?
Just a site visit?
You don't need to notify council for sure. If you want to run it by us, you're welcome to do that, but so long as we're not in our cycle period, you're allowed to do site visits.
Okay. I just wanted to make that known for our new commissioner, that this is the season, once we do our meeting in January, like.
Actually, December, when the application's open.
Sorry.
What I'll do is, of all these edits and everything, I'll bring it back. We don't have a meeting in October, so I'll bring it in November, just to make sure. And then the actual, it will open December, I think it's 2nd or 4th, for the nonprofits to review. So we'll look at it in November, make sure everything looks good before it opens in December.
Okay.
But yes, correct. You can visit organizations up until it physically opens, so that'd be until December. If there is any invites, you'll get, if you do get an invitation, send it to us. If I get them, I will send them out to you, and usually you guys will let me know so we can kind of see who's going and kind of keep track of that.
Okay.
Awesome. Just to update you guys, so the policy manual edits were approved by City Council at the last council meeting. I'm sorry, 2 council meetings back, and as well as our youth commissioner will now have voting rights, so that was a new thing this round. And I have to say thank you to Bea. She did a phenomenal job. If anyone didn't get to watch the council meeting, I would highly recommend watching it because she did an excellent job speaking. I didn't even shouldn't have been there. She really sold the show, so thank you.
Nice.
Received a lot of compliments internally
Yes.
from how well you did.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think if you're looking for a job, people said they would hire you too, so. And just based on city operational needs, the 25-26 check presentation is going to be moved to August, moving forward, so it'll be August 12th. And I will reflect that in the calendar and post that on the website with the edits. I know we did this last presentation in August, and just with all the administrative needs, it does need to move to August. So just wanted to let you guys know that. And then, I don't know if you all saw the email that you're all invited to the Boards and Commission dinner. It's a whole new, it's a golfing theme, and it'll be at Top Golf. So if you are planning on attending, just to RSVP to our city clerk's office so that they have your RSVP. And I think that's all I have. So good meeting. Thank you for all this discussion. I think I got it all.
I have a quick question on youth commissioner stuff. So our November meeting is when we would be interviewing, so we kind of have the early meeting and then the late meeting?
Correct. So that will be a longer meeting, more or less. I think the interviews start at 5:30 unless we get so many that we need to bump it back at 5, and we'll let you guys know. But time-wise for you guys to interview, giving you that, and then the time to discuss. So I know it ran okay last time, but if we do get more, it doesn't give you guys a lot of time to discuss. And then we will have a meeting. I don't know exactly what is on the agenda. I think there was just a few things, but for sure this will be brought back on the agenda.
And the annual report, you'll have the draft
Yes,
of
and
that?
actually that is as well. So that's actually, I'm working on that now. So I'll have the summary report of, basically the organizations that were here will be a summary of what they've submitted in their reports. And I'm trying to think. And also, yes, so if you know anyone interested but also it is in the admin standards that she will be allowed to reapply if she likes. So if you guys are interested, I know some of the other commissions do have their youth commissioner around 2 years. So that is something, or if you have anyone too, please encourage them. And I think that's it for November's meeting, but yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Any other commissioner reports? Nope. We'll move to item 8, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So the next meeting is November 12th, 2024. Again, no October meeting. The Grants Advisory Commission meeting, I now call to adjourned at 7:49 PM. Thank you for watching.